everyone, and welcome to Moms with Benefits. I am sitting here with a working mom guest that we are very excited to talk with today. Her name is Lauren. She is actually a clinical social worker and therapist who specializes in maternal mental health. She has three children, ages 7, 4, and 2. And her husband have been married for 10 years, together for 16, and she's out in Michigan. So, Lauren, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome. I think we got a lot of things to talk about here. So, being that this is a podcast focused on working moms, I really want to start out with, what does being a working mom mean to you personally?
So at this point in motherhood and work, it's been quite a journey, and I've loved being able to witness just how it's changed over time. I remember being pregnant with my first, and I was working full time. And I remember being about to go on my maternity leave, and I was like, I will never work full time again. And I was so excited about that. I really love the work that I do as a therapist. And I just want to acknowledge the huge privilege that I've had to be able to spend a lot of time at home with my kids. And I remember that excitement in my very first pregnancy. And that being on that maternity leave was so great, being home with my son. And I also quickly realized how excited I was to go back for the days that I was in the office. And over time, I've noticed how I am a better mom when I spend some time at work and my kids spend time with other grown-ups who love them.
I'm nodding my head here because, yes, that resonates with me. And I love that you use the word journey. And what I also heard was that it felt like your emotions and relationship with work changed as you sounds like you were pregnant and then you were actually on leave and then you were excited to go back to work. So what kind of drives you to work?
Part of what drives me to work is I absolutely love my profession. I very strongly identify as a social worker and as a therapist. It's something that I've wanted to do since I was 16 or 17. So all throughout college and undergrad and grad school, I knew I wanted to be a therapist. That was so important to me. And as I continued on in my career, I noticed how much support moms need and deserve, and just what a lack there is there. And so that's part of what keeps me going now, is just knowing that maternal mental health is so important, and it's not something that I was explicitly taught about or learning about when I was in school, what feels like a million years ago. But now I see as just more and more of a space that more and more clinicians and therapists are becoming specialized in, and acknowledging how can we support moms and parents and families.
I hear a lot of passion when you talk about what you do. Do you feel that passion was always there, and then when you became a mom, it kind of flourished even more or transformed even more because of your personal experience? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really blessed with some really incredible postpartum experiences. I've got some really great people around me and in a village. It's not necessarily a huge village, but quality really, really makes up for that quantity. And so it's been really helpful and beneficial for me to see other people in my circle, how they do motherhood, having them kind of as some models and some guideposts. I feel really blessed by the postpartum experiences that I have had. With each of my kids, I've taken a longer maternity leave. So with my son, I took 4 months. At the time, I worked at a nonprofit that actually didn't even qualify for FMLA because they were that small.
Interesting.
So I had a really fantastic supervisor, and she was just like, take however long you need. You want to take 10 weeks? That's great. You want to take, and so I came up with 16 because for me, I was like, well, it's more than you'd typically get, that 12 weeks.
Wow. And that was 12 weeks. If they don't do FMLA, that was 12 weeks, just job security, not paid.
Right. Oh, I used up my PTO. I wasn't paid. Yeah, that was the pay that I got, was using my PTO. And I think at that point I had worked there for 5 years and saved up 3 weeks. And then having my second child, I realized that while I was excited to go back to work, 4 months wasn't long enough. So I went back at 6 months with my daughter. And that felt good at the time because at that point I had a preschooler, and it was just a little bit of a different experience. I felt like a more seasoned mom. the newness of like figuring out life with a newborn just felt a bit less intimidating. And 6 months was the right time to take with her.
And you were able to do that, not just take the time, just because you had someone who was supportive and understanding that motherhood needs that kind of support. Like, it was not a state mandate. It was not a federal mandate. It was a human to human, a mother to mother, I'm assuming.
Yes.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Then like the pandemic happened and like that kind of went crazy. I think I went back in the office for like, I think less than a month. And then we were suddenly all virtual.
Right.
And then we were like figuring all of that out. And then with my son, I decided to take a year. That point, I had 3 kids under the age of 5, and I needed to be home. My family needed me. I very much acknowledge like the privilege, such privilege I have. My husband, who is so supportive and has always made it very clear, like, if you want to work, that's fantastic. If you don't, that is great. If you want to be part-time, that is cool. If you like, and that has just been critical for the success of our family. And the fact that he has a job that not only carries benefits, but also he is financially able to support us. And my income is kind of the bonus income, so to speak.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a huge point. Issue related issues is, motherhood comes at a financial cost. And so navigating that as a mother, you're already navigating growing a life in you and everything that comes with that responsibility, and then work on top of that, and then throw finances on top of that. So let's dig a little bit deeper into, I hear you say you're blessed with a privilege, and I can appreciate that sentiment. What do you feel like was most successful in the dynamic with you and your husband, who sounds like your main supporter in these situations? Like, what worked for you to be able to have the conversations of who's going to stay home, or how can we afford it, or how do we figure out how we can afford it? Like, what do those conversations look like?
Yeah. Luckily, my husband and I, it's just really easier for us to have those types of conversations. And it can really just be as blunt as, I don't want to work full time after I have a baby. And he's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So those conversations for us have always been easy. At one point, I think we had maybe our son. So we were maybe like new into parenthood. And I asked him, I was like, would you ever want to be the one to stay home and I would be the like our main breadwinner? And his response was F no. Very
Really?
quickly, very
Wow.
quickly. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So this works for you and it works for me.
So in your case, you were okay with that reaction.
I was so good. I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. I'm not
Perfect.
the one like taking this opportunity. If you also like want to maybe do that, he's like, no, like I love you guys and I love spending time with you. Like, of course, you're my everything. And I'm really good with the arrangement we have. I really like going to work and doing that. I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah, so you 2 were, I mean, you 2 sound like a great team,
Yeah.
is what it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Hmm.
Awesome. So, I want to go back to your profession, because I can't chat with you here without, diving into all the knowledge that you must have as a therapist who specializes in maternal mental health. So, talk to me a little bit about, who you talk to, what are the main topics that you cover, shed a little light on that for us.
This is where my passion just developed that much more because of the great experiences that I got to have in postpartum. And even with all of the support that I have and the village that I have surround me and the great teammate that my husband is, like it's still hard. It's still really, really hard to even like be on the like trying to conceive journey and to grow a human and to birth a human and then to like be responsible to them. And I feel like that was a process I was able to really kind of like take in stride, but like it's also really hard to still like feel like yourself. And I'm putting some air quotes up around that when you're sleep deprived and when you might not really like know who you are anymore. And then we throw in like any of the like wrenches that we know that motherhood can throw our way, right? That like, what if it's difficult trying to get pregnant? Or what if we do get pregnant, but then we have a loss at some point? What if we're talking about a traumatic birth, right? What if we're talking about a partner who's not supportive and who's actually abusive? Motherhood is happening in all of these situations as well. And those people need and deserve support. And those those are the people that I want to be working with and holding space for, and being part of their support team that helps them through to whatever like a better space can look like for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like shining light on these issues and or struggles rather, and actually talking about them and having a safe place to do so without judgment feels like that can be the most supportive or a supportive way to help mothers in motherhood. Do you have any advice for support systems out there that may have expecting mom friends, colleagues? What guidance would you give people that want to be more supportive today to either working moms or expecting moms?
If it's your sister, if it's your friend, if it's your daughter, be there and listen. Ask how she's doing. And then if she gives you the like, oh, hey, like I'm doing great, and like a smile on her face, ask again. Like, hey, how are you really doing? Like, it's really hard to grow a human. You might be exhausted. Hey, man, like toddlerhood is rough. How are you guys doing with that? Just offering space from a non-judgmental standpoint can be so helpful. Lots of love and compassion, reminders that she's doing a good job, and that it's not hard because she's bad at it. It's hard because it's new. And motherhood is always going to have like the next new version. And that the fact that she might feel like she's quote unquote failing at it shows how much she cares to begin with. And that goes a long, long way.
I love that. I love everything about that. It's hard because it's new, and motherhood is just a constant new slew of newness, new challenges. What I heard in there too was there's so much, I think, emphasis on the baby, the child, and what I heard a lot from you is the motherhood piece of that. The mom is transforming, and that needs to be where her circle, her mom tribe comes into play, in addition to, of course, loving and being supportive of the child. That goes without saying. So do you feel like there's a distinct difference there in the approach of what you would recommend, or maybe that we've transformed a little bit about how we need to support working moms?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's not hard to love a baby, right? Like, they're so cute and you just want to hold them and snuggle up with them, right? Like, of course, like, yeah, everybody wants to go over and do that, but ask her, like, what would be helpful, right? And maybe she does want you to hold her baby so that she can go take a shower or go get a pedicure or, sleep or, whatever. But maybe she wants you to do her laundry and clean her bathroom so that she can sit in bed and snuggle her baby. And either one of those options is totally fine for mom to want one way or another. But ask her and wait for her to give you an answer. I'm another really big fan. Sometimes it feels really overwhelming when people are just like, "Hey, I'm here. Let me know what I can do to help." That like puts it's so well intentioned and it comes from a space of love, right? And it can also like put some extra pressure on moms of like, I don't have the brain space to tell you how to help
Yeah.
me. Offer like a
Yeah.
little menu of like, hey, I'm going to run out to Target. Are there some things that I can pick up for you and drop off on your doorstep? Do you want me to deliver you a meal, or do you want me to pick up your kids for 2 hours and take them to the library so that you can have some quiet in your house? Or if there's a secret D option that I'm not offering, let me know of that one too. And then like let her pick from a little like menu of what support can look like.
I love that. I feel like that's incorporating the concept of mental load. And, as expecting mothers, as new moms, as working mothers, there is a lot of the mental load that somehow just, you know, falls on us. And we can we can probably talk and dig really deep into why that is, but we'll save that conversation for another day. So I love that tip of coming up with a list of options, so that they can pick from that, so that the mental load of even creating those options is not another thing on their list to do. So Lauren, in your work, do you have any experience with supporting mothers throughout their journeys or struggles, or communicating with their employers about what they can and are allowed to do for their maternity leave, say? Like, do you have any experience with helping moms work through that?
Absolutely. And I think there's tons of ways that companies can focus on supporting working moms. I think starting with maternity leave can be a really great one. We could be talking about what individual companies can be doing and offering. But I think we're also talking about like a much larger systemic problem in our country that needs to be addressed. We know that, this the quote unquote standard 12 weeks for FMLA is what a lot of working moms are offered for maternity leave. And we know that that's just not long enough. We know that there are tons and tons of moms out there that don't get that long. I've heard horrific stories of moms giving birth and like within a week they are back to work. I've heard the analogy of there's like a law, or at least in the state that I'm in Michigan, that you can't take puppies from their mom until they're like either 6 or 8 weeks old. I think it's 8 weeks old. And we know so many moms have to be able to support their families financially, have to return to work and be apart from their babies when they're less than 6 weeks old. It's barbaric. We really just need more time. And I'm focusing on moms here, but for parental leave. We know that some companies like are getting better, and we also know it's just not enough, right? We need to get a whole lot better, a whole lot faster. I know I mentioned earlier that my first maternity leave was really just like me chatting with another mom and figuring out what worked for me. And when I had my other children, I was with a different employer, and thank goodness, she was European, so she had a very different thought and approach. So when I just told her how long I wanted to be gone, and she was like, "Yeah, that's fine. I'll, let me know if anything ever changes, and I'll see you when you come back." But even thinking of like from my husband's point of view, our first two children, he was at two different companies, was never offered a paternity leave. He took 2 weeks vacation. So it was paid, but it was his vacation time. And
Wow.
that also came with the like, he didn't have any extra like time off. That like if something were to come up, if a baby was sick, I was going to be the one to stay home and to figure that out. And again, since we made the decision for me to work part-time, we were able to make that work. And then I was just the one kind of left to figure that out and play that whole game of mental load. And that's a lot harder when both parents are working full-time hours, right? Or both parents have PTO banks that are completely empty. It wasn't until we finally had our third baby that he was finally at a company that offered an actual paternity leave. And I think they offered 12 weeks paid, and he didn't take all of it because there was pressure of like, okay, like we support you and your new family, and you're in the middle of a really big project, and we really do kind of need you back. So just normalizing like, you've had a baby, stay home with them, love them, and bond with them. It's so important for that baby, it's so important for that mom, and it can be so important for that mom to have her partner there too, helping to support her and figure out like what their new life looks like as their new little family. And that's just important for dads to have access to as well.
Yeah, it almost feels like culturally and systemically, we're kinda told to, like, "Yeah, you're having a baby, carry on," like, it's wild when it really does affect your mental health, if you're the birthing, mother, your body, your emotions, your support system, your finances, your work, your everything. And so it's so interesting that there are other parts in the world, like, your previous employer boss being from Europe understood that, socially and systematically, they look at it a lot different. And so that gives me the optimist in me says, there is hope, right? That people can, learn to appreciate the gift that is life and the support that's needed. Do you have any kind of advice for listeners that might want to try to push the needle forward in some ways with their companies of what they can do to advocate for their parental leave and different changes like this?
Part of me feels like we also need there to be like, it needs to be like written in like laws, like we need to be like reaching out to like legislators. We know that some states like are offering parental leave packages, regardless of like what individual companies are doing. We definitely need that like across all 50 states. I think even just like some of the work cultures, just the reminders that like it's like a parental leave. It's not a vacation. It's not like you're like going to the beach and like sipping drinks on next to the ocean, it's a lot of work, right? And it's beautiful and exciting and joyful and stressful and overwhelming and exhausting. I think creating a culture that really encourages, this is what like the package that we offer, take all of it, or allowing there to be flexibility, like maybe allowing parents to like take the first 2 weeks or, however long to be at home, and then the option to, take some weeks later on so that they can maybe stagger what those leaves look like between the two parents so that a parent is home longer with the baby, and just allowing like some creativity and flexibility along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes total sense, and really just hoping that, you know, new parents feel empowered to be able to, I don't want to say take advantage, because you're not taking advantage. It's just owning that you're having a baby and that deserves time and healing and respect in your own way, and not feel like taking your full paternity leave should not feel like you're taking advantage of your company. Like, that is wild to me.
Yeah, and to acknowledge that like that's one of like the benefits that like companies offer, that like you're not taking advantage of anything, you're utilizing the support that they are giving you, and really just like that shift of like there are some times in life where like you need some extra support, and that's exactly like why packages like that are offered.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, there are benefits there for a reason. I mean, they're named Moms with Benefits, right? It's named with Okay, Lauren, a fun game for you. So I am going to list a bunch of words one at a time. And as soon as I list that word or say that word, I want you to name the first emotion that comes to mind to that. Now, huge caveat, there are no wrong answers here.
Okay.
Okay. Absolutely no wrong answers. And this is a judgment free space. And we know that emotions can go up and down and we can feel them all. So, just currently, what is the first emotion that comes to mind when I say kids,
Stressed,
working mom,
overwhelmed,
pregnancy,
exhausting,
mental load,
exhausted,
finances,
surprisingly calm.
company benefits or insurance?
It's not an emotion, but a necessary evil in a love-hate relationship.
All right. And the last one, the future.
I'm going to say hopeful.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I think we covered a lot today, and I really, really do love all of your insight today. I am, so grateful to have met you through this opportunity, and I'm super, super supportive of, your passion of being, a therapist for working moms, for expecting moms, and just specializing in the maternal mental health. I think there's a lot of progress to be made, and it's so wonderful to hear from someone directly that's in the trenches with how they're trying to make improvements there. So thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Moms with Benefits is on a mission to empower moms for the financial impact of motherhood. If you're a mom willing and even excited about sharing your journey and challenges with other moms, we'd love to have you apply to be a guest on our podcast. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram at momswithbenefits.org, and our application is linked right in our bio. P.S. We see you, Mama. You're working hard today, and you are doing great.